the Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, give a 5-star rating, and leave a review. Check out all our past episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you pod. What if these celebrities weren't famous? What would they have become? What was their first job? We're about to find out.
So think about this. Pat Boone is celebrating his 70th year in show business. He's 88 years old. He's been a star since the 50s and still continues to stay relevant. Remember when he came out with that metal album? I think it was in the late 90s or early 2000s, singing some classics from Ozzy Osbourne, which Crazy Train, Pat Boone's version, ended up being the theme song on the MTV reality series that changed everything, The Osbournes. So my guest this week on Celebrity Jobber, the one and only Pat Boone.
This Zito?
It sure is, man.
Jeff Zito. Okay, not Irving Zito, Jeff Zito.
Do you know an Irving Zito?
No, I was just making a simple early morning joke.
Hey, I can dig it, man. It's you know what, me and you. Seems like you lived in New Jersey for a bit. I lived in New Jersey for a little while.
Yep, I was first Leonia and then Teaneck.
Teaneck, nice part of Jersey. Are you still there at all or no?
Oh, no, I haven't been back. Not that I wouldn't. It's just not on my beaten path. I moved to Beverly Hills, California in 1960, and I'm sitting in the rocking chair in the house we bought when Shirley and I were like 24 with 4 little kids. We moved out from Teaneck because she wanted a home where the girls could have an ordinary life and not be moving every month or two. And so we set up shop here in this house, and I'm still sitting in it 67 years later.
Man, and I got to tell you, Pat, New Jersey probably not the best place in the world to be for show business, and I understand you're celebrating your 70th year in show business?
Yes, I am. The first record was 1955 with me covering and I did a whole bunch of covers, which only a few of us pop artists were doing. Elvis, me, and 2 or 3 others were covering these quirky and hooky R&B songs. And I did 2 Hearts, 2 Kisses. 1 heart, not enough, baby. 2 hearts to make you feel crazy. I did that one.
Awesome.
And then Ain't That a Shame? Ain't That a Shame? Fats Domino. And then bop bop a luma up a lot bop bop
Tutti Frutti. Oh yeah, that was a big one for you, wasn't it, Pat?
It was. Well, these were all million sellers. I did Rip It Up and Long Tall Sally, and Crazy Little Mama Come knocking at my door. I was just a pop singer from Nashville originally, but here I was singing rhythm and blues, not trying to sound like the original performers, but trying to capture the excitement,
right,
and the flavor of their music. And Jesse Jackson said to me recently on the phone on radio that he thought I had done more for race relations with my music in the 50s than any other artist.
That's unbelievable, man. Can you tell me, Pat, a little bit about growing up? I know that you were born in Florida, but you at an early age you moved. Was it to Tennessee, and you grew up there? Tell me about growing up with your family.
I'll never forget an early age, as you said, hitchhiking to Nashville when I was 2 years old. My dad, a building contractor, architect, and he joined his uncle, Uncle Jack Boone, in Nashville, and eventually owned the company, and I was able to help him do that. But yes, we moved to Nashville. My younger brother, a year younger than me, Nick, and then 2 sisters, and we grew up in Nashville. And I, except for Dinah Shore, who's the famous singer, she and I are the only celebrity singers that I can think of that ever actually grew up in Music City, USA, Nashville.
Wow.
So I got this big country album coming out, 25 major all-time country hits that I sang. I did my versions of all those country songs through the years in my albums, and sometimes actually my own personal hits. But it's an album of 25 major hits, all sung by one hick from Nashville, Pat Boone.
So, Pat, being in the showbiz world for 70 years, and you're still putting out new stuff. Tell me, what was the backup plan? Because you were a pretty young guy when you got famous, but did you have a backup plan? I know you went to college. I know you went to Lipscomb and you went to a few other colleges, but what were you aspiring to be if not for being in show business?
You've really done some homework. I'm glad. Yes, but I had no backup plan except up through the time I already had hit records, made a couple of movies, was doing the Pat Boone Chevy show on ABC television, the youngest guy ever to have his own musical variety show. I was determined to get my degree from Columbia University because I still thought that I was going to be a teacher-preacher.
Okay.
Which is what I started out to be when Shirley and I married at 19, and I didn't think that this record career was going to last. I'd already met a number of quote celebrities who'd had one or two hit records, and now were singing in little clubs or behind the bar in a restaurant, and still milking that one hit they had.
Right.
And that's not going to be me. I'm going to have my degree from Columbia, and I'm going to be a school teacher who can talk about my early record career. But the record and movie and TV stuff just kept going, and it was not my plan. It just happened.
Wow. So what do you think your big break was? What was the first thing that really blew you up and catapulted you into superstardom?
Ted Mack's Amateur Hour. I don't know, you may not remember that show, but it was the forerunner of all the voice shows and America's Got Talent and all these shows, because it was live on Saturday nights on radio and then television. Frank Sinatra was on that show, Ema Sumac, the opera singer, and on and on, Jerry Vale. Many were on that show, their first appearances, and if you were competing with a variety, it didn't have to be singers. I mean, they had strange kinds of acts on that show, like one-legged dancers and one-armed piano players and one-man bands and just and one guy who beat Connie Francis out when she was on that show. She sang and played the accordion.
Oh, wow.
But the guy that beat her that week was playing a classical melody on a leaf in his hands.
What?
So you never knew what was going to be on that show. But if you won 1 week in the cards and letters votes, which were cards and letters, then they would bring you back the next Saturday. And I won 3 weeks in a row. But nothing came of it, apparently, except it led to a recording contract with Dot Records, which was a little startup independent label outside of Nashville.
Wow.
And so that's the Ted Mack Amateur Hour, which was the original of all the Voice and America's Got Talent shows, and I won it 3 weeks in a row.
There it is. What about your first job, Pat? Do you remember your first ever job out of show business? What was the first paying gig you ever had?
Oh, I was working for my dad as a laborer. My brother and I both, we were digging ditches while we were still in high school, digging ditches and pouring concrete, pushing wheelbarrows for my dad, the architect. And of course, he was wanting us to follow him in the building business, but pushing wheelbarrows, I was trying to think, isn't there something else I could do with my life?
We got a lot in common, Pat. You lived in New Jersey. I lived in New Jersey. My father was an architect. Your father was an architect. Very, very interesting. We share this connection. Although I've got a terrible singing voice, so there is that.
Listen, there's a lot of people with voices worse than yours that are having hit records.
This is true. You're making a good point.
Let me ask you this: you have another thing we have in common is the podcast. Now,
that's right.
Podcast is nationwide. It says it has 75,000 downloads weekly. I'm coming toward you. I have a podcast as well, and I'm on Sirius XM Gold 50s Gold every week on Sirius XM, and I'm still letting people know about all the over 2,300 songs that I've recorded. Nobody in history, Frank Sinatra recorded 1,500. Bing Crosby, my role model, did 2,000. I've recorded over 2,300, and I'm still doing it.
Wow, man. I'll make you a deal, Pat. You like my podcast and follow my podcast and give me a 5-star rating, and I'll do the same for you.
I will get that done today.
Hey, tell me a little bit about this new song you got. You recorded with a bunch of big time Nashville superstars, and it's called Grits.
And let me tell you something. This is true. It came to me in a dream. I mean, I'd recorded with Crystal Gale last year, early a song. She had a big hit with Eddie Rabbitt, but he was gone. It was won Grammys, but he's gone now. And so Warner's and Crystal Gale had me sing with her, Just You and I, and it's not out yet. But meanwhile, I had a dream that I had a big country hit. And you know those dream things, when you're dreaming something wonderful like that, all of a sudden the idea creeps in, I wonder if this is just a dream. And when that idea happens, all of a sudden you start waking up and the dream is gone. But I came out of that dream with this verse: grits, grits, bestest food there is, country caviar, Tennessee foie gras, grits, grits, bestest food there is, keep your fancy food, give me my grits. And
this is amazing.
And it just came in a dream.
Yeah, I can't believe. First of all, it always astonishes me when I speak to somebody like yourself where they wrote a song in a dream. I never do anything in a dream but make a mess. But regardless, I'll tell you what, man, you singing to me early in the morning was definitely the highlight of today. That's for sure. Give me a little Speedy Gonzalez on your way out, Pat.
You better come home, Speedy Gonzalez, away from Tannery Row. Yeah, I found that song in the Philippines where it had been a big hit. I brought it home, recorded it, and I think Speedy Gonzalez went to number one faster than any other record. Well, appropriately, it was called Speedy, but and that people still demand that song wherever I appear.
Oh, it's a good one, man. I got to tell you, the Pat Boone Show on Apple Podcasts. You can check out Pat's new record. It's called Grits, and Ray Stevens, the Gatlin Brothers, Lori Morgan, Dean Miller. Got a bunch of special guests on that, and real pleasure speaking with you today, Pat. Thanks so much.
Well, good to talk to you, Jeff, and you're in Florida, right?
I am in Tampa, Florida.
I'm a cracker. I don't know if you knew I was born in Jacksonville.
Oh, I knew you were born in Jacksonville. I knew you were a cracker.
So I got that Spanish moss in my brain.
Right. Hey, man, have a great day. Thanks so much for the call.
Thanks, Jeff. Bye.
You know, Pat Boone, 88 years old. I know he was a big star in the 50s, but, still keeps himself relevant. We know that he's got like a new song out with these current country artists. But, sometimes these guys will surprise you. I wasn't expecting a whole lot out of Pat Boone. And boy, I think we got a whole lot, really. Big star when he was a teenager, did some songs, did some movies. He thought he was just going to go to college and become a teacher and a preacher and be able to tell his followers and or students about his one-time brush with fame. But that it didn't end. It kept coming and coming and coming. I mean, he had a backup plan. Obviously, going to school, pretty educated guy, went to a few different colleges, finished up at Columbia, like he said. But how about that? It never happened. It never dried up. Pat Boone, 88 years old, and celebrating his 70th year in showbiz. I mean, wow. His dad was an architect. And Pat's first gig was a laborer for his old man, the architect. So he said he was pouring concrete and digging ditches, and his old man kind of wanted him to follow in his footsteps. I found a lot of similarities between myself and Pat Boone, and a big one was, my father was also an architect. And I think he also wanted me to follow in his footsteps because he had a pretty good business already made, and he thought that maybe me and my brother could just kind of continue on where he left off, and he could help us, maybe consult us, and might have been a good gig for me and my brother to follow along in my dad's footsteps and become an architect and general contractor in that field. It seems like it's not a bad business to be in these days, huh? Definitely this is a lot more fun, I can tell you that much, right? What a surprise, Pat Boone. Awesome episode. Hey, and he's got a podcast too. But as he mentioned, his podcast isn't getting 75,000 weekly downloads like this one. Thanks to everybody listening. Listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you pod. A 5-star rating is much appreciated. Please leave a review, and we'll keep this thing rolling. Onward and upward. Until next week, it's the Celebrity Jobber Podcast. I'm Jeff Zito. We'll see you then.